Okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome. The clock has just gone 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday morning, 18th of February. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dan, founder of Excel Academy. Great to have you with us. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. So drop us a line in the chat. We've got more people joining us, I'm sure, in the next couple of minutes. I see somebody has just joined us. We've got Tracy joining us from Houghton, maybe at the AutoJet HQ. Welcome, Tracy. Thanks for all your help in setting this up, conceptualizing and setting up this three-part series. Today is session 2. Last week, we had a great crowd and a lot of fun in session 1. And today, we're going to continue where we left off. We'll do a bit of revision. We'll go over what we covered last week in session 1, and we're going to build on that. Okay, so this is a three-part series. We are recording this as well as each of the sessions, and those recordings will be made available to you via email if you've registered for this. So it is one of those things that sometimes you need to re-watch it and practice again in order for the skills to start to embed in the way that you do things. Okay, and to avoid that flash in the pan, we want to continue to practice and to implement and integrate the skills into our day-to-day work. Welcome to Monique Thomas, who's joining us from Mantis Security, or maybe it's Lydia who's there joining us from Mantis Security in Houghton. I think it's Upper Houghton. Welcome to you. All right, and welcome to everybody else who's just joined us. Drop us a line in the chat. We'd love to know where you are. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to put a message in the chat now with the links to download the downloads, the spreadsheet for this morning's session, as well as the PDF cheat sheets. Remember, if you attended last week, you will remember this. Okay, this is our keyboard shortcut cheat sheet, double-sided. Maybe you've printed it out by now. Maybe you've got a hard copy from before. We're going to be working on that. So please download the zipped folder now. All right, I'm going to ask Avi actually to drop it into the Zoom chat as well, the actual zipped folder. So you got a Dropbox link, a WeTransfer link, and there we go. Avi has put the actual zipped folder into the Zoom chat as well. So thank you, Avi. All right, and I'm going to click on the WeTransfer link, and I'm going to share my screen to show you what we see. All right, so let's rearrange the furniture here. Let's move this to here. Okay, can minimize that. Move this out the way. All right, so here's our WeTransfer. We're going to click download, and okay, our downloads land up here in our downloads folder. All right, and I'm going to open up the downloads zipped folder. And here you can see what we've got. We've got AutoJet session 1 from last week. That was the beginning of session 1, and this is the beginning of session 2. We've then also got keyboard shortcuts cheat sheets for Windows, PC, for Mac, and for Google Sheets. Most of us will be using the PC one, so I'll open it up. And by the way, because we are keyboard people, we like to use keyboard shortcuts across all different applications. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the menu here, and I'm going to go to view, and you'll see I've got read mode, which is Control and H, or full screen mode, which is Control and L. So let's try those. Control H. Okay, that goes into read mode within Adobe Acrobat Reader. I can then scroll out with Control and the wheel on the mouse. All right, or hold Control and scroll in with the wheel on the mouse, okay, to zoom in and out. And I can press the right arrow to go to the second page, left arrow to go back to the first page. Thank you, Avi, for posting the shortcut in the chat. Avi has actually jumped the gun there. He's said Control and L, which is full screen in Adobe. That was the one I was going to get to. So you got Control H to go into read mode and Control L to go into full screen mode. We'll leave it like that, Control L, so that's perfect. And then Alt and Tab is to alternate between different applications. All right. Nice thing about these 3 sessions is we're not focusing purely on Excel in isolation. We're not living in an Excel vacuum. We're actually working in a Windows environment, and it's great to become savvy, smart, and efficient working in Windows in general. All right, so we're pressing Alt and Tab to toggle us between different windows. We're back here in our downloads, and you'll notice here that we've got our spreadsheet, as I said, for the beginning of today, which is the 18th of Feb. I can press enter to open it up, and you'll see here, this is where we left off. If you joined us last week, you would have remembered this. We took our data, we converted it into a table. We looked at some of the advantages of working in table mode, and we then formatted some of our numbers. We learned a whole lot of keyboard shortcuts. We also, before working on that data, we actually did a warm-up. So there's our warm-up. You can see that was last week, which was the 11th of Feb. Now we're back again, Tuesday, 18th of Feb. Okay, what we need to do as well is we need to enable editing. It's protected, this file, because it's been downloaded off the internet. So it's just making sure that we are safe. But obviously we trust this file. We know that it's not suspect, and we can enable editing. All right, how did I just do that? I switched between the two different tabs using a keyboard shortcut, which is Control Page Up to move to a tab on the left, or Control Page Down to move to a tab on the right. Once again, I'm going to press Alt and Tab to toggle between different windows. This time I'm going to press Alt and then Tab. So I press it twice, and then it takes me back to the cheat sheet. And there we go. Avi has put Control Page Up or Down to toggle between different sheets in Excel. And you see it there, Control Page Down or Control Page Up. And notice that on your specific keyboard, we mentioned this last week, I'm going to repeat it now, it's really important that you need to take note of the specific layout of your keyboard. Your page up and page down button might be in a different place to mine. In addition, it might actually be shared. The page down key might be shared with the down arrow or some other button on your keyboard. It really depends on the layout of your actual keyboard. So you might have to press Control and Function and page down or page up. So just have a look on your specific keyboard. I know on mine, there it is. So you can see there's the page up and page down keys. All right, next to Home and End and Insert and Delete. But just check your keyboard to make sure that you know where you are. All right, and we can once again press Alt and Tab to go back to our spreadsheet. All right, and let's just have a look. I think what we should do is go back into our downloads folder, and let's open up the session, the spreadsheet from the beginning of last week's session. Does this look familiar? If so, then it means that you joined us last week and you remember starting with this raw data and working with it. If it's not looking familiar, if you didn't attend last week, remember you've got the recording, or let us know and we can get that recording to you and you can revise session one. I think what we should do is do a quick recap. I think for everybody's benefit, for us, for you guys, we're going to do a quick recap of everything that we've covered just so we know how we got there. I'm going to click Enable Editing. All right, you'll notice that the text over here is a lot smaller, and that's because we're on a normal 100% zoom. If we press Alt Tab, you'll see that the zoom here is 130%. How do we change the zoom? We can actually hold the Control key and zoom in with the wheel on the mouse, the same way as we did that with the PDF in Adobe. All right, there we go. And what we did was we saw that there's lots and lots of data. We actually pressed Control and the down arrow key to teleport to the bottom of the data. Press Control and the up arrow key to teleport back up to the top. All right, so Control and the different arrow keys to teleport quickly to the top or the bottom or the left or the right of the data. Also, if we're in no man's land on the right-hand side, for example, we want to jump back into our data, we can just press Control left arrow. All right, so it gives us control. All right, and once we're standing somewhere in the data, that magic shortcut that we learned last week was Control T. And what that does is it helps us to convert our ordinary data into a table. All right, so you can see there, create table. T stands for table. Where's the data? We can see that it's got this moving green box, A1 to J14839. My table does indeed have headers. I click OK, and there we go. We've now converted our raw data into an Excel table, which has numerous benefits. We saw some of them last week, and we'll continue to work in this mode today. What we saw is that if we press Control and the down arrow key, Control and the down arrow key, we go to the bottom of the data and we notice that we've got this automatic freeze panes instead of ABC. We've actually got the headers there. We also see that there's a table design tab where we can switch between different table styles. We can also put in a total row with Control-Shift-T or by ticking this box over here. And we saw last week that we could select average from the list there, for example, to see what the average progress is across all the delegates. All right. And the average sign-in count. We also saw Alt and the down arrow key to activate that drop-down list. And then we can just toggle, navigate down with the down arrow or the up arrow and press enter. All right, so we've got this total row, which is fantastic. We can turn it on and off by ticking over there or by pressing Control-Shift-T. Okay, and then what we looked at as well, I think to finish off last week's session, was how do we format these numbers so they tell a better story? How do we use number formatting to display these numbers in a better format, all right, in a more professional and presentable way? What we did was we used the keyboard shortcut Control and Spacebar to select an entire column of data, and we're going to press it again to include the total rows. Remember, Control and Spacebar. We also cracked that smart but maybe a little bit corny joke that where the aliens go to have a drink is at the spacebar. All right, you're never going to forget that one. Spacebar is also the biggest key on the keyboard. You can't miss it. Control Spacebar to select the whole column of data. Press it again to include the total row, and then we're going to press Control Shift and the number 5 to activate percentage style, to format these numbers as percent. All right, so Control Shift 5 or Control Shift percentage. All right, so that formats this whole column as percent. We might want an extra decimal place. We can do that there. And then for last activity, we once again press Control Spacebar. We don't need to worry about that total row for now. And what we're going to do is Control Shift 3 or hash, Control Shift 3 or hash to format these numbers as dates. All right. And you'll see it's activated a custom number format. If we go to the drop down, we can actually choose a short date, for example, or a long date from the standard list of number formats in that drop down over there. And we can press Control Spacebar. And this time we can actually press Control Y to redo. So how cool is that? We didn't actually have to do the exact same shortcuts again. We could just redo or just repeat what we've just done using Control Y. All right, so Control Z is to undo, Control Y is to redo. All right, so if you undo something with Control Z, you can reverse the undo by pressing Control Y, but you don't even need to use the Control Z. If you've done something that you like and you want to repeat somewhere, you can just press Control Y to repeat what you've just done. Okay, so very, very handy indeed. All right, and then SAST, we didn't get to this last week. What we did get to is the mobile numbers. We pressed Control Spacebar, and then we looked at different ways to get to that Format Cells dialog box, either by clicking over here and saying More Number Formats, or press Escape, and we could click on that little launcher over there, or we could right-click and say Format Cells. Okay, you probably know that way, or we can press Control 1 on our keyboard. That's the one in the top left of the keyboard, not on your number pad on the right. So Control 1. And then what we said is we need a custom number format. And instead of general, we'll put in 10 zeros. We can put them with dashes as well, the same way as you would have your cell phone number with, for example, 082 and then a dash. All right, put in another 3 and then a dash and then another 4 zeros. And there we go. We click OK, and now they are formatted very nicely. All right. Okay, guys, so we are almost at the point where we left off last week. The last thing to do is, in fact, I think we are exactly at that point. Okay. Oh, one extra thing that we wanted to do was to remove all these extra decimal places there. So what you can do for this particular average in this sign-in count column, you might want to format it in comma style. There we go. Or what you can do is undo that, and you might want to press Control, Shift, and 1. All right, so that puts it in number style with 2 decimals. We can remove one of the decimals. We can increase it. All right, so we've got full flexibility to display those numbers however we want. This is exactly where we left off. Okay, what you'll notice, however, is that we're currently in a read-only file. All right, and what we want to do is we want to save this as. All right, we want to save this in a location that makes sense to us, that's easy to find, that's backed up, that's in the cloud, whether it's Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, or any other cloud storage location. And we also want to make sure that it synchronizes with our colleagues. All right, my colleague has just turned his camera on. Welcome, Avi.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it'd just be valuable in case anyone joined a little bit late. We've popped the downloads in the chat. We're actually going to re-pop it in because it's really important that you're following along. So just to get everyone up to speed, I'm going to repost the zip folder with the downloads in. And what Dan has very kindly done for us is we've got 2 different files there. So if for whatever reason your data from last week didn't quite get to what it needs to look like, we're going to go into the file which is the 18th of Feb. Is that correct, Dan? So that if for whatever reason yours doesn't look quite 100%, that's fine. We can all start off on the exact same point with the same looking data today, which is the 18th of Feb. And again, just pop me a message in the chat if you're struggling to download, or if there's any issues at all. We're here for your support. We also, just to remind you that we love engagement. So pop your comments in the chat if you liked something, and really we're here for you, and we hope you get lots of value from today's session.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Avi. All right, so you'll see that I've just reacted with a thumbs up there. So find that reactions button somewhere at the bottom of your Zoom window and click there, and you'll see you can give us any emoji you like to let us know that you are alive, awake, and alert as we're going. So there we go. I see you guys have found that feature, and I see lots of reactions coming through. All right, brilliant. So guys, if we do something that you like, if you're with us, if you feel like it, then give us a reaction along the way, and at least we know that you are following along with us. All right, guys, next shortcut we covered last week, and we're going to revise it here, is F12 or function and F12, depending on your keyboard settings. Okay, so I'm going to press F12, and typically the function key is that FN key on a laptop. I actually don't have that key on my full keyboard. All right, I've got a big full wireless keyboard here, so I don't need the function key. It doesn't give it to me there, but on your laptop, you might have an FN key, and you might need to press FN and F12. All right, what you'll notice is that it's putting this, it's giving me this save as window, and it's showing me this local temporary folder in this weird and wonderful looking zipped folder with a strange ugly looking code. All right, that's because it's been downloaded in a zipped folder off the internet. We don't want to save it there. We don't want to work there. We definitely don't. All right, what we want to do instead is we want to work in a folder, as I said, saved in the cloud. In our case, we work on Dropbox, and you can see here I've got an Excel Academy team folder, and we've got AutoJet 2025, and we've got a special subfolder for February AutoJet. All right, and I've pinned that. You can see I've pinned it to the quick access. All right, I can always navigate up by clicking on one of these. You'll see we've been working with AutoJet proudly since 2020, or maybe even before that, and I've labeled everything very clearly, so Avi and I can always find what we're looking for. And yeah, here we go. Let's go into today's date. All right, and you can see that this is the file which is actually in your zipped folder as well. All right, what I've been working on is that one from last week, and then I've been updating it. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of copy of. How do I do that? Okay, stand at the beginning of the word data. I'm going to press Shift Home, and I'm going to press Delete. Then I'm going to press End, and that takes me to the end of this text. Okay, and end of part 1. Okay, I'm just labeling it like this. All right, so I'm saying it was the 11th of Feb, which was last week, and I'm saying end of part 1. Okay, and I'll save it there. Okay, cool. Now, guys, as we said, we can press Alt-Tab, and we can actually go back into the zip folder, which we all downloaded. All right, and we could just open this up. And you'll see it should look pretty much the same. Okay, it says, sorry, Excel can't open 2 workbooks with the same name at the same time because I'd already opened it up. All right, by the way, you can toggle between different Excel files. Remember we said Alt-Tab, that takes you between different windows. You can toggle between different Excel files by pressing Control-Tab. So that toggles you between Excel files. So we're staying in Excel and we're toggling between different Excel files. Okay, so here's the one that I just worked on with you, end of part 1. Here's the one which we opened up from the zip folder. But as I said, and as you can see, they are the same file. Okay, so I'm going to close this 18th of Feb one. Okay, and I'm going to continue working on end of part 1, the one that we've worked on today. All right, I think actually the only thing that we haven't done, which we did do last week, it's coming back to me, is we widened the columns. All right, we looked at a shortcut to do that. So let's go over that once again. We can press Control A and Control A again to select all the data and then including the headings. And then if we press Control A again, then it includes everything. So all the data in the entire spreadsheet. And remember what we did in order to auto fit the column widths is we took our mouse and we went in between any 2 of the column letters. All right. And our mouse cursor changes to that. And then we double click and that auto fits the columns. I can press Control Z to undo that. And you'll see, and we mentioned this last week, is that you'll see here I've customized my quick access toolbar. I've put the auto fit column width button on the quick access toolbar. I got it from here, from the home tab and the format button. I right clicked and I said add to quick access toolbar, and there it is. All right, you'll notice that I don't have the save, undo, and redo buttons because I know I've got shortcuts for that. All right, so I don't need them on my quick access toolbar. So what this means is if you've got something on your quick access toolbar, then you can press Alt on your keyboard just once. Look, mom, no hands. Okay, just press it once. And then you'll see here, I've got number 1 on auto fit column width. So I can press number 1 and that auto fits the column width. Okay. So instead of going with the mouse, which you can do, but instead of that, you can also press Control A a couple times and then Alt and then the number that's associated with that button. All right, guys. So just continuing now where we left off, we see that we've got the SAST column. That stands for South African Standard Time. All right. Why are the time figures looking strange and looking like decimals? The reason for that is because with every day in Excel, that number, that 44,000 and something, which we saw over here, gets 1 bigger every single day. And within a day, the decimal represents the time of the day. So 0.5 would be midday, halfway through the day. So 0 is midnight and 1 is the following midnight, and the decimal is some point along that day. That's just a fun fact, which might or might not be useful to you. But for now, we're going to practice the shortcuts that we've covered and that we've been revising. Control spacebar to select an entire column, and Control Shift and 2 to format these numbers as dates. What you'll be glad to see if I press Alt Tab a few times and I go back to my cheat sheet, we've got Control Shift and 5 for percentage, which we saw for that progress column, 3 for date, 2 for time, 1 for number. All right, and then the other 2 that we haven't seen, and we'll look at now quickly, are currency, which is 4, and general, which is the squiggle. All right, so if we were to press Control Shift 4, you'll see it puts it into rands and cents. If we press Control Shift squiggle, it goes back to general over here. All right, if we were to press Control Shift 1, it puts it in number format, in other words, 2 decimal places. And if we were to press Control Shift 5, it would put us in percentage format. But in this case, we want Control Shift 2. All right, so you can see that there's quick, easy number formatting shortcuts all in a row there at the top left of our keyboard. Control Shift squiggle, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And as I said, and as I showed you, here they are on your cheat sheet. Okay, let's get into good habits. We're going to be saving this. All right, but now we've got this called end of part 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to press F12 and we're going to call this part 2. Let's call it part 2. Okay, I'm going to change the date over there as well because we are working on the 18th of Feb and we want to label this clearly. So this is part 2 in progress. And there we go. All right, it's nice to control our versions so that at any point we might want to go back to the original spreadsheet from the beginning of last week or to the spreadsheet at the end of last week's session, which is the beginning of today. So it's really good to label them clearly so that we can always track each version at each point in time. All right, guys, next up is what about combining our first name and last name? This is something that's very common. We've got a column of first names here, a column of surnames or last names. And what about joining together? Let me know in the chat. How do we do that? The chat is open. We want to hear from you in the chat. Let us know in the chat what feature in Excel do we use in order to combine or join together first name and last name. Okay, Jenny Fine, you've said merge cells, great idea, but merge cells is not what we're going to be using in this particular case. Any other ideas? Okay, Jenny's on the right track. We kind of do want to merge together the first name and last name, but it's not merge cells itself that we're going to be using. All right, I'm assuming from the lack of responses, it means that you guys are not so clear, not so sure about what to do, and you are sitting with bated breath to find out what it is. All right, so we're going to put you out of your misery, and we're going to show you step by step how to do this. The first step is to actually create some additional space. Why do we need space? Because we want to take something from the first column and something from the second column and combine it into something in a brand new column. So we need extra space in order to work on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the whole of column C, either with the mouse like that or with Control Spacebar. Okay, and we're going to insert a new column. And how do we do that? We're not going to press Control I, because insert starts with the letter I, because what that's going to do is that's going to italicize everything. If I press Control I, what we're going to do instead is we're going to press Control Shift and the plus button, the plus key, which is above the equals. All right, so if you have a look there next to your backspace, you've got Control Shift and you've got the equals or plus button. So that's what we're going to press. The issue with that is you'll see that it has messed up the auto-fitted column widths. So you can see here the mobile numbers are not fitting. This last column's not fitting. So it's actually messed up the column width. So I'm going to undo that with Control Z. And the way to rectify this is to either click over there with our mouse where it selects the entire column all the way down to 1,000,000, or we can press Control Spacebar once, twice, 3 times, and that has the same effect. And then we press Control Shift and plus, and what it does is it maintains the column widths of the other columns. Okay, so we're happy with that. We're going to change column 1 to full name. Okay, we're going to get our typing right. Control Spacebar to select the column, and a couple of times, 3 times to be exact, and then Control Shift and the plus button to insert a new column. All right, and then what are we doing here? We are going to join together the first name and last name, and we can do that using the concatenate feature or concatenate function. I can actually stand in any cell in this column. All right, I could stand in the first one. Okay, Sonia Smith. All right, let's stand in the first one. And we're going to start any function with an equal sign. We're then going to start typing concatenate, which starts with C-O-N. Maybe you've never heard of that name. It's a funny word. All right, it's typically only used in an Excel context. You'll see that there's concatenate, but it's in recent years actually been shortened by Excel to concat. And you can see it says concatenates a list or range of text strings. All right, and the word concatenate is basically a synonym for joining together. All right, so we're going to press Tab to activate that particular function, or we could double click on it. We're going to press Tab because we're keyboard people, and now we're inside the brackets. All right, and now we're working in an Excel function, and the way it works is we now need to specify what it is that we want to join together. All right, so it's definitely Sonia. So we're going to click on Sonia. You can see it's color-coded in blue. It's also got a moving box around the cell. All right, and it's also, instead of calling it A2, which we would have expected, all right, we will get A3, that format, that notation, if we move 1 or 2 or 3 cells down. You can see it's in that A5 notation, but because we're working in the same row and because we're in table mode, it's actually helping us out by giving us a description of what the cell is. So that's why we've got this notation here with the square brackets and the first name, the actual name of that field. All right. Then we're going to put in a comma. You can see it's prompting us. We need a comma. Yours might require a semicolon, so just check that out. Okay, mine is a comma as a list separator. All right. And once I put in a comma, it's now telling me to put in text 2. All right, so I can put in text 2, which would be the last name. All right, it's now color coded that in red. So I've got a blue one, I've got a comma in between, and then I've got the red one. All right, and then I can close the brackets and I press enter. And we notice a couple of things. Firstly, how brilliant is that because we're in table mode, it fills it in all the way down. We didn't have to then drag or copy that all the way down to the bottom of the list. So that's a good thing. But we also notice that there's a problem. Okay. There is a problem. Sonia is stuck to Smith. Nokwazi is stuck to Rudman. All right, so you can see that the first names are stuck to the surnames. There's no space. There needed to be a space. All right, so we need to doctor this function or this formula, and we need an extra piece, space in between the first name and last name. And the way that we do that is we go in like a surgeon. We need to be very, very specific and accurate. We go into the formula bar, all right, and we click just after the comma, all right, and we need an additional piece here. And this piece is going to be like our press stick. It's going to stick together the first name and last name, all right, and it is a space that we need. And the way that we do a space is we have to put it in quotation marks. So we put quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and then another comma. All right, so quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and then another comma. So that becomes text 2. So if we click through here on the blue part, first name, that's text 1. You can see it's bolded. If we're on the space over here, that's text 2. And then text 3 is the last name. And when we press enter, you can see that because we're in table mode, it goes and replicates that all the way down. So we only have to change it once. It therefore helps us to save time, work more efficiently, and prevent errors. Because the problem is, if we weren't in table mode, we'd have to do that, and then we'd have to remember to click and drag it all the way down. All right. Okay, so are we all happy with that? Does that make sense? What I can do is, and I'm wary of time, we're at 9:32, so we've got just under half an hour left. Okay, I can show you another technique for this. So I'm going to press Control Spacebar, and I'm actually going to delete. Remember, if you want to revise this, you've got you'll have the recording, and you can go over this in your own time. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to show you a brilliant AI enhancement here, which is super smart, and it's Excel's way of learning and recognizing what's going on and intuitively doing what we want to do. All right, without having to program a complex formula or function. Okay, so what am I getting at? Basically, let's say I wanted to do this. If I were to do it manually, I would have to type Sonia space Smith. By the way, we see a lot of people putting spaces after the last word that they type in a cell. That's not a good habit. All right, we don't want spaces at the end of a word. All right, so we just go Sonia space Smith, and then we press enter. And then the next one, we would start with typing a capital N, and you can see how brilliant this is. Have a look here at what it's done. It's preempted this person's name, and then it's got almost in pencil, in like a light gray, it's got the full names of everyone in the entire list. All right, so what that's done is it's preempted, it's anticipated what we want to do. This feature is called Flash Fill. We are very happy with it. We are grateful to Excel for doing the work and preempting what we needed to do, and we simply press enter, and it's filled it in all the way down. How do I know that it's called Flash Fill? Because I get this little pop-up over here which says Flash Fill Options, and you can see it gives us the opportunity to undo that flash fill, or to accept the suggestions, or to select all the cells that have been changed. All right, and you can see that it's done it, and it's done it perfectly. All right, if we had done it with that concat function, all right, we would have had, as we did, formulas in the entire column. And in that case, there's a good chance that we would have wanted to or needed to copy and paste those as values. We're not going to worry about that for now. We're very happy with this technique. And there we go. Let's save our work with Control S. And let's move on. Where are we moving on to? We are moving on to sorting and filtering our data. All right, let me go back into file here. Okay. All right, guys. Now, something that's very common, by the way, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so I can see everything on my screen, is what we do at Excel Academy is we send progress reports to every group through WhatsApp. We actually do it on WhatsApp. I'm opening up my WhatsApp business here. Don't worry, there are no personal details here, no contact details. We're not in trouble with Poppy. This is just an example showing you a list of people at a certain company. And what we like to do is we like to send them a progress report showing them who's done what. So you can see this particular group, everyone's done 101. And then these 5 people over here are all either busy with 202 or they haven't started 202. So this is a progress report. And you can see that we've sorted it or ordered it from top to bottom. And it's got the total row as well. So we have had to take our big data set and filter it according to this particular company. And there we go. So they're all in this group. And how do we do that? How do we filter our data for a specific organization? What we would need to do is come to this organization column over here and filter the data. So for example, this Whole Foods market. Let's say we want to show the results for the Whole Foods market. What we can do is we can filter it. Okay, we could look and go down this list of about 1,000 different organizations, but it's actually easier just to type in the word whole. And interestingly, there are actually 3 organizations with the word whole in them. We've got BJ's Wholesale Club. We don't want Costco Wholesale. We only want this. And we click OK. And there we go. You can see that Whole Foods market, they're actually all finished except for Zama. Zama Funze is still busy with 55% progress on Excel 101. And we might want this to be a little bit more colorful, just like this WhatsApp group. Remember, we showed you here that 100% displays in green and then 0% displays in red. And then we got this graded color scale, orange and yellow. All right. And we also want it sorted from top to bottom. So Zama's coming up at the top here, and we want Zama to actually be at the bottom, just to show everyone is finished, and then Zama at the bottom. So how do we do this? What we'll do is we'll simply go to the progress column and we'll sort it largest to smallest. Okay, brilliant. Sorted largest to smallest. It's taken Zama and all her details to the bottom of the list, and it's sorted it effectively. Now, how do we do the conditional formatting? Okay, how do I know that it's conditional formatting? Because it's formatting that is conditional upon certain values. All right, and this is something that we cover in depth in our Excel 202 course. But for today, what we're going to be showing you is just a simple technique, a simple way or use case of using conditional formatting to format these numbers in a specific color depending on their value. So what we want to do is we want to press Control Spacebar to select all of those values. And then we're going to go to conditional formatting. And you can see before we click on that button, the screen tip, it actually says easily spot trends and patterns in your data using bars, colors, and icons to visually highlight important values. If we want more info, we could click on that tell me more over there and it'll open up Excel's help feature. But for now, let's just click on the button and have a look at what we've got. We've got a whole lot of highlight cells rules. Okay, all these different options over here. We've got top and bottom rules for the top 10 items or top 10%, for example. We've got data bars, we've got color scales, we've got icon sets, and we've got a whole lot of different options if we go into new rule over there, which we're not going to cover today. As I said, we go into depth with this in our Excel 202 course. But for now, we're interested in a basic color scale just to understand how this works. So we go to color scales, and you can see here we've got green, yellow, red. We've got red, yellow, green. We've got green, white, red. So different color options, red, white, blue. All right, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to apply a color gradient to a range of cells. The color indicates where each cell value falls within that range. Okay, so I'm going to click on that and look at that. It's given me green for all the cells that are on 100%, and then it's given me orange for Zama because she's on 55%. So isn't that great? We now have a formatted list. All right. And if we want to then put this into WhatsApp, maybe we're not interested in duplicating and showing them first name, last name, and full name. So we might just want to take, let's say, those columns. All right, and we can select them. We could do that using the keyboard as well by pressing Shift arrow right and then Shift arrow down, and we might want to take the total as well. So let's go over that again. How did we do that? We stood on full name and we press Shift arrow right and then Control Shift and arrow down to jump to the bottom of the list and select everything along the way. And then we might want to include that total row as well. So we press Shift arrow down and then we can press Control C and we can go into WhatsApp and I can actually paste it into WhatsApp. And you'll notice that it's pasting it as an image, which is great. It's pasting it as a picture. It's also put all the data into text over here, which we don't want. So I typically just press Control A and then delete. Okay, so we don't need anything in the caption unless we want to write a caption. Like you can see what Avi's done here is he said, well done for completing 101. All right, and here we could say, well done to everyone. Zama, keep going, you're nearly there. All right, okay, I don't want to send this to this particular group. So I'm going to click delete and I'm going to press Control A and delete. Okay, so let's go back. You can see we've got this green moving line all over here. And the reason for this is because we've actually filtered the data. How do we know we've filtered the data? You can see the blue numbers down the left-hand side. And you can also see, okay, let's press escape, get out of there. You can see that that funnel over there is indicating to us that we have filtered the data. So now let's practice what we've covered. We've covered quite a lot here. Let's practice what we've covered. So if we go to the organization heading over here at the top of column K, we can activate this drop down for the sort and filter options over here by clicking on that button. All right, and then we might want to choose Abercrombie and Fitch instead of Whole Foods Market. All right, I'm gravitating towards brands that I know. All right, how do I activate this drop down, the sort and filter drop down, without using the mouse? Remember, I can use Alt and the down arrow key. I have to hold down Alt and press the down arrow key, and then I can navigate through this list using the down arrow. All right, so I might want to clear the filter from the organization tab or the organization column, but instead of doing that, let me actually go down. So I go down, 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 and now you can see that I've got the ability to tick these different boxes over here. Currently, we've got Whole Foods Market. So what I can do is I can use the space bar to select these different tick boxes for the different items. You can see that I've got an interesting looking black square over here next to select all, and that indicates that, let's actually go back up. If I click on that select all, you can see I've got a tick box next to select all, which means that all of them have been selected. If I untick, okay, then they're completely blank. So what does that black box do? What does it mean? If I go down to Abercrombie and Fitch and I click on it or I press spacebar, okay, then what you'll notice is that the select all tick box becomes black, which means that some of the items have been selected, not all of them and not none of them, some of them. And that's why we've got that black checkbox over there. So now it means that Abercrombie and Fitch has been selected. I press enter and there we go. Now we can actually appreciate the color scale that much more because we've got green, red, orange, yellow, everything in between. All right. And this particular group, we've got 4 people who are finished their course. And then we've got some people who are in progress over here. You can see that it's no longer sorting them from highest to largest. So we'll have to go and do that again. All right. So we go up to the progress heading. We press Alt and down, and we're going to re-sort it largest to smallest. So I'm going to press enter on there. And there we go. We've now sorted it from top to bottom. It's showing these 4 people at the top, the 4 people who are finished. Okay, Michaela's on 94%, and we got all the way down to Angela, who's on 26%. And there we can see the average is 69.1. So we might actually want to change or put the word average in here. Okay, we can do that. We can also select this entire total row using Shift and spacebar. Shift and spacebar to select the whole row. Remember, Control spacebar was to select the whole column. Shift spacebar is to select the whole row. So practice that. And we might want to bold it with Control B. And why would I put average in that particular cell over there in this particular column? Because there's a good chance that I actually want to send this just as I did with the Whole Foods market. I want to send this to the WhatsApp group for Abercrombie and Fitch. Okay, so now how do I select all this data? I'm going to press Control Spacebar to select all the data in that particular column. I'm going to press Control Spacebar again to include the header and the total row. All right, and then I'm going to press Shift and arrow right to select to the right as many columns as I want. All right, and then I'm going to press Control Spacebar and then go into WhatsApp or email or PowerPoint or Word or wherever I want it, and I can then paste it in. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So now the next thing I want to do is to clear the filter from Abercrombie and Fitch. I'm done with them. I want to clear the filter. And by the way, as I said, you can identify that the data has been filtered by having a look down the left and you see these blue numbers over here with the double lines in between. All right. And you also see this filter button over here shows you the little funnel over there. So that's your visual cue that this data has been filtered according to this column over here. All right. And okay, so what I said is a moment ago is that we want to clear the filter from this particular column. So how do we clear the filter? I showed you this a few moments ago. We can go to this drop down and we can say clear filter. Or what you'll see over here on my quick access toolbar, I've actually put this clear filter button on my quick access toolbar. Where did I get it from? The data tab. All right, you'll see the data tab has sort and filter features over here. There's the filter button. We looked at this last week. We saw that there's a shortcut Control Shift L. And there's also this button over here. And once again, I can right click on it and say add to quick access toolbar, and it will put it there on my quick access toolbar. Yours might be in the top left above the ribbon. That's okay. All right. The benefit of this is that you've got quick access to it using your mouse or by pressing Alt on your keyboard and then the number 2. All right. So the number 2, and that clears the filter. All right. So we no longer have the organization column filtered. You can see we no longer have the blue numbers down the left-hand side. All right. And we can save our work, Control S. All right. Okay, guys, we do have another 12 or 13 minutes here. All right, so we can show you one or two other things. I think we're going to save pivot tables and pivot charts for next week. All right, so we'll keep you thirsty for that for next week. All right, so we're going to look at pivot tables and pivot charts, summarizing this complicated data set into a dashboard using a pivot table and pivot chart. We're going to look at that in depth next week. But I think for today, we have covered some really fantastic stuff. We obviously revised last week. We've then looked at the concatenate feature as well as the flash fill. We also looked at formatting this time column over here. We also looked at sorting and filtering. All right, and I'm going to show you one or two other sort and filter features. We also looked at conditional formatting on this particular column, and we looked at how we can copy data from Excel and paste it into, for example, WhatsApp or any other application that we want to. All right, but just back to filtering for a moment. I think it'll be valuable to look at how we can filter data according to dates. So let's say we wanted to filter the data according to everybody who has been active within a certain date range. So what we can do is we can go to last activity. We can hold down the Alt key and press the down arrow to activate that drop down. And here you can see that it's actually grouped together these dates according to year. And we've got these little plus arrows, which let us expand or collapse this particular 2022 over here. You can see we've got January, February, March. So because these have been filtered as dates or formatted as dates rather, you can see we've got the ability to quickly and easily filter the data according to specific years or months or even days. All right. Okay, so let's say we wanted everyone from who was active in 2022. Okay, so we can deselect all by ticking or unticking that box. And then we can say we want everyone who was last active in the year 2022. So we can tick that. Once again, you can see that black checkbox over there. We click OK, and there we go. It's only the people who were active in 2022. All right. Okay. Another brilliant way of filtering your data is by using what's known as a slicer. If we go back to the table design tab, remember the table design tab we showed you briefly this week, and we showed it to you in depth last week. We looked at these different styles. We looked at the filter button, the first column, the last column, etc., the banded rows. All right. What you'll notice is that you actually have an insert slicer button as well. It should be on your version of Excel. If it's not there, then just watch. Then it definitely will be there when we look at pivot tables next week. But the slicer feature, you can see it says use a slicer to filter data visually, and it makes it faster and easier to filter tables, pivot charts, and cube functions. So let's click on it, and let's say, all right, you'll see that we've got an option here to insert slices for different fields. We can insert as many as we want. We just have to tick the boxes. You can see these are all the column headers. And let's say we wanted to slice the data according to the course. All right, and we can also do it according to last activity. You'll see what happens here. What it does is it gives us 2 of these slices. All right, and let's start off with course. You can see that there are 4 unique items in the course slicer that corresponds to the filter button over here, where we've got these 4 unique items. All right, so what it's doing is it's just giving us a visual way to slice and dice this data. So we might want to show only the people who have done Excel 101. So we don't have to go in there and tick that box. We can just switch between the different courses over here, and we can even multi-select. You'll see here multi-select. So I might want to show everyone who's done 101, 202, and 303. I can leave out Outlook Secrets for now, so I can filter the data visually and easily using the slicer. And it's also a nice user-friendly way to get colleagues or clients to have the ability to do what we want them to do. So it's much easier to tell a person, just pick the ones that you want from this visual, from this box over here, the slicer. Okay, now we can clear the filter over there. Okay, by clicking on that button, clear filter, or using Alt and C, and that gets rid of whatever filter we've applied. And if we shift our focus for a moment to slicer, to the slicer for last activity, you can see it's actually given us an option for every single date. How would we? Okay, we actually want this according to years and months and days. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete the slicer. You can see that if I click on this one, I've got these handles around it. If I click on this slicer, I've got the handles around it, meaning I can move it just like a picture or a shape or an object in Excel. All right, I'm going to delete it. And what I'm going to do is I am going to let me just think. I'm actually going to consult with Avi to find out if there's a way to actually slice this according to, oh, you know what it is? It's a timeline. All right, we would need a timeline instead of a slicer. I think Avi will confirm that. And that is actually, I think, only available in pivot tables, because over here, it doesn't give us the opportunity to put in a timeline. It's just giving us a slicer. Am I right, Av?
Yeah, it's a good question, because typically it should still give you the option for date. But either way, as we'll see with pivot tables, if your dates aren't grouped, it's going to be quite bulky to have those as a slicer. But yeah, as far as we can tell, it's not allowing us to group those dates into a slicer, which is a good thing, that we can see that it doesn't work here, because it's going to really lend itself to really emphasizing the value and the importance of understanding how to build a basic pivot table. It's not as complicated as it sounds. We're going to talk through that next week. We're really going to see the value in converting to a pivot table, so we can then group our dates into months, years, quarters, etc. And then that'll be a much easier way to slice and dice our data. So if we just want to see progress for Q3 2023, there's a simple, easy way to do that using a pivot table. Let us know in the chat, by the way, if you ever used a pivot table. Do you know what a pivot table is? Does it give you nightmares potentially? It used to give me nightmares. We're really going to break it down. We're going to demystify what it is, how to use it, how to really summarize your data. It's a really useful and a really important skill using a pivot table. Monique, you're too scared to try it. I remember that feeling. Basically, I mean, I can tell you the story next week in more detail, but before I even started my first proper job, I was studying project management and I needed to summarize trucks or something like that. And I chatted to a friend of mine who was already working and quite an Excel whiz. And I don't know how he helped me. Maybe I emailed it to him and he sent it back and had this complex thing called a pivot table. I was like, wow, that's like really, that's way beyond my pay grade. But eventually I learned that, you know, if we take a deep breath, we take it step by step, it's really not as complicated as it seems or as it feels. Pivot tables, you know, they can be complex, of course, but we're going to show you how to start in a simple step-by-step manner to convert your data into a pivot table, to summarize your data so that you can essentially, like the word is, you pivot around your data, looking at it from different angles, understanding it from different perspectives. So it's good that the dates didn't work now, because we're going to show you with the pivot table. So essentially, that's a very long answer to saying, when we get to a pivot table, we're going to talk about dates and grouping dates and filtering based on dates. And it's really going to make your lives a lot easier when it comes to working with dates in Excel. Big thank you to Dan. I've mainly been in the background, but thanks to Dan, I'm sure everyone got lots of value. A reminder that the session was recorded. You're going to get a link so you can refresh, rewatch, and revise. And then we'll be seeing you next week, same time, same place, for session 3.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Avi. And you'll see we've actually put in our contact details there. It would be great to connect. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, you'll see our URLs there to connect with me and with Avi on LinkedIn. So please do that. You'll see the link to our website as well there and our email address. So please do get in touch with us. And yeah, we are looking forward to seeing you next week. Please drop us a message in the chat before you go. We would love to know what you thought of the session and what was your favorite part. And yeah, so drop us a line just before you leave here today. And I see a lot of reactions coming through as well, some hearts and applause. So that's great. Thank you for your participation. And again, a big thank you to Tracy and the team at AuthJet for giving us the opportunity. And Jenny says, thank you, very interesting and useful. Monique says it's a great help. Okay, by the way, while Avi was talking, I pressed Control S to save my work. So really important to get into that habit. Control S to save our work. Next week, once again, we'll give you a link to download everything, including the spreadsheet from the beginning of day 1, week 1, last week, and from the beginning of today's session, and also from the beginning of next week's session. All right, because remember, we are using save as to clearly define and save each version at each point. All right, Monique says, great to learn concatenate. Thank you. You're most welcome. Yeah, we thought it would be valuable to show you that concat function, to show you that often there's 2 or more ways to do the same thing in Excel. We showed you concatenate, and we also showed you flash fill. All right. And also, it's great to start tapping into some of the power of Excel formulas and functions. And we also saw that when we put in that formula, it snapped it all the way to the bottom of the table. All right, so that's, again, a huge benefit of working in table mode. All right, and all right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, we are about to close up, but we'll leave this open for another few seconds just in case you've got anything you want to say to us in the chat. Let us know. And otherwise, guys, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Quite wet and gray and rainy here in Joburg. So enjoy. Oh, I see that Monique posted a question in the Q&A. All right, you'd like to know how to split a column. Okay, so that's great. We'll look at that next week. Monique, if you can just send us a reminder next week, we'll look at how to split a column of full names into 2 separate columns. Okay, pretty much the opposite of the concatenate feature. All right, guys, so it's just about 10 o'clock on the dot. We're going to say goodbye. We're going to say cheers for now. We'll see you next week. All the best. Cheers, cheers.